when you go for it, you have to go for it with everything. You know what I mean? So if I'm going to lean into something heavy, I do it with my whole body. You know what I mean? Like, and there, I mean, there's, you can see it when I'm tracking stuff, like the behind the scenes stuff, man. I give my whole body, my whole soul to a take, and I don't hold anything back. I make sure that if I need it to feel unhinged, I keep doing it until it has that vibe. You know what I mean?
I'd love to start off with is kind of talking a bit about your earliest UK memories. Obviously, Rock Sound, we started in '99. Obviously, Slipknot debut was around that time as well. Loads of covers with you guys over the years and stuff. But what do you remember about those first trips actually over to the UK and those first kind of experiences for you?
Oh, I remember going, why am I so tired at noon? You know, the jet lag was brutal, dude. I can just remember we weren't prepared for the reaction, dude. Like it was crazy. Like that first show that we did at the Astoria, which so many people talk about, for nine guys from Iowa who didn't really have any idea of what they wanted their career to be, they just knew that they wanted a career. We weren't prepared for how how quickly we became part of the zeitgeist in that moment. You know what I mean? Because I mean, it was everything that we'd read about for special moments and then some. Like, I mean, it was just this ball of insanity in this little club where, the back staircases smelled like shit and garbage. And here we come up onto the stage. And I mean, it is 1000% bedlam. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't know people could act that way. Like, it was crazy. People were hanging from the rafters. And I remember me and Sid looking at each other going, what the fuck is happening, dude? It was one of the most special nights of my life. And it is one that I try to play in my head over and over and over again because it was done so quickly that I didn't really have a moment to appreciate it, man. It's only when I can talk to fans about it, the people who were there, that I'm able to kind of put myself in that moment and really remember just how rad it was. But for me, dude, I mean, it was a fucking whirlwind. It was just so, I mean, it was just fucking. So when I think about the first time we got to come, there, I mean, it was so special, and yet it was gone so fast. And maybe that's one of the reasons why I always try to get back there so often, because it's one of my favorite places in the world. And every time I've come back there, it's felt more and more like a home away from home.
Yeah, I can totally see that because it was also, I think it's fair to say, I mean, I'm biased, but it was one of the first territories that kind of really adopted you guys in a big, big way. It
Was
felt like it was kicking off over here, arguably
yeah,
even more so than America in a lot of ways. Obviously, you can see that kind of growing and growing, but over here, man, that's where you hit some bigger stages first, I think.
dude. And you're not wrong. I mean, we even said it to ourselves. It's like if the UK hadn't broke us first, I don't know if it would have happened in the States. I mean, obviously, we had some traction because of Ozfest. And I mean, we made a fucking meal out of that as much as we could, like we just tried to, we were able to use that to kind of jumpstart onto the coal chamber thing. But then politics really kind of fucked with us on that tour. We weren't treated well on that tour until Sharon stepped in and said, you fuckers better fucking sort yourselves out. Not to us, but the other people on the tour. It said, you realize half these fucking people are here to see them. So you better fucking work it out. So by the time we got to the UK, we had such a bad fucking taste in our mouths, because of the way that we've been treated. Like, people were so fucking like threatened by us that we didn't know why. And then once we got to the UK, it was like, oh, because we're the new thing. And we weren't really able to kind of put it together. You know what I mean? So it was, it was cool to be able to go over there and see that reaction and go, well, fuck, man, if nothing else happens, we've got this. And this is so special, you know, like it really felt like for the first time, somebody understood the noise that was going on in our heads, man, you know?
Before we get into this brand new record, I want to jump back to the previous one, really, and just the very idea of you doing a solo project because you've never been afraid to try other stuff. You know, we already mentioned Stone Sour and stuff where you can take a slightly different creative lane from what we've heard you do in Slipknot. Why did it feel like the right time to actually go down the solo project route in the first place?
Ah, man, I don't even know if it was a feeling, you know? It was something I'd been threatening to do for a minute. And with the state of how Stone Sour was at the time, where I was kind of done doing that, and Slipknot kind of was, it hadn't fired back up, and then obviously the pandemic kind of put a big pause on everything. Um, I just kind of went, you know what, maybe this is the time to do it. I kind of just, I went in with no expectations. I really had no plan for it. It was really just to record these songs, these surplus of songs that I had, that really had no home. They didn't fit with Stone Sour. They certainly didn't fit with Slipknot. It was just a way for me to kind of, put those out there because I loved the songs and I just wanted to share them. I didn't know if there was an audience. I didn't know if anybody would care. It was just a matter of, let's put it out there and I can make it part of my story. Fast forward to now where, you know, the audience is kind of there and they still don't know what to expect. And I have a better idea of what I want to do solo wise, like I've kind of figured out, I learned from the first experience. I've been able to kind of fine tune things and focus it and really go, okay, that was kind of slapdash. Let's put something together that feels like a more well-rounded journey. Let's put something together that really takes people somewhere the way that I've done in the past, like it's not just kind of a hobby thing, it's not this kind of something on the side. It's something that I'm very serious about. And in a way, it's almost replaced Stone Sour for me as like the side thing that I do when I'm not doing Slipknot. And once I kind of settled on that in my head, I went full bore all the way with it. It's like, okay, now I'm going to do the elements of the stuff that I want to do. I'm going to do the heavy stuff, the dark stuff, the acoustic stuff, the fun stuff, the light stuff. I'm going to really tell these stories and tell them in a way that it makes people feel like they're really on a fucking roller coaster ride. And that felt really special. Seeing the reaction to everything that has come out so far has been so good because you're talking about three different styles, and yet there's so much more on the album that really kind of fucking takes people places. And let's not forget the fact that some of this stuff is over 15 years old, man. Like I've had this shit forever. So it's exciting on so many different levels for me. And the reaction has just been so fucking gratifying. Like this really kind of feels to me, and I was just talking to the band about this the other night. This feels like the first album. Like this feels like we're kind of starting from here, instead of, it almost kind of feels like the first CMFT album was the album that, was kind of like the demo that we shopped to get us signed. And now we've got a real trajectory and a chance to do something really fucking special, man. And it seems to be taking off. It seems to have, people's fucking attention.
Yeah, I mean, what's nice, I mean, there's loads I want to talk to you about on this record with loads of the kind of different styles in there. But what's really nice, and we saw it with the previous one as well, is that particularly when those B-sides came out with like it was the cover version and stuff as well, you really used it as an opportunity to kind of explore all manner of musical influences on there, right? It really felt like you were almost like tipping your hat in places to artists that have clearly inspired you growing up. Am I right in saying that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's so many people. There are so many people I have not had the chance to nod to acknowledge, to thank. I mean, let's not forget music kept me alive. Music was the only source of happiness for me for the longest time, from when I was a kid all the way up until even into my 20s, for God's sakes. Music was the only thing that made me feel something other than horrible about myself. So there were so many voices in my head and so many people kind of holding me up, that I am just really scratching the surface. I've had a chance to kind of to show my respect over the years, because of Slipknot and Stone Sour. I've been able to kind of talk about my influences, whatnot, but there's still so many out there that I really want to acknowledge. And the cool thing about, doing the B-side stuff, is, you know, getting to show those little hints and bursts of, doing everything from, Lunatic Fringe to Shaken, like that's, and then, the B-sides that we have for this album, people are going to freak out. I mean, we've got everything from, Alice Cooper to Echo and the Bunnymen. I mean, it's that level of fucking radness. And I also have a band who can play anything, and I'm really, really, really spoiled when it comes to that. So I'm um I'm really looking forward to putting that out next year. And it's one of those things that I want to kind of, I want the audience to kind of get to the point where they expect that. It's like, oh man, this album's great. There's also going to be this album that comes out next year with like all the B-side stuff. And the cool thing with this is that in addition to the the covers, it's not just acoustic versions. It's actually leftover originals that didn't make the first album or didn't make this album. So it's changed up even more from that side of stuff. So it's evolving, and it just feels great. It's everything that I've ever wanted to do, and it's everything I've tried to do with Slipknot and Stone Sour, and I'm finally getting to do it now because I'm the boss, and I get to fucking make the decisions.
The man's in charge. Here we go. No, no, it's true though, isn't it? Because it can really go anywhere. And it's interesting. I want to ask about kind of your approach to writing when it is something that's so radically different from what you've done before. To you, is it like, do you get in the studio and writing a song is just writing a song, or do you have to kind of go into a different headspace when you're doing these very, very different styles to what we've typically heard from you and the band before?
Oh, that's a good question, man. I think for me, I mean, dude, I'm when it comes to songwriting, I'm a psycho. Like I will, especially if I get like a great idea in my head, I will worry at it and kind of toil on it for a minute. Like, I mean, and I'll keep kind of coming back to it until I feel like I've wrapped my head around at least the arrangement. Once I have the arrangement, then I kind of have a firmer grasp musically of what I want to hear. But here's where I'm different than other people. When I bring it in and I demo it for the rest of the guys, because when I demo it, I play everything. And it's just really just meat and potatoes. So I'll play the bass, I'll play the drums, I'll play the guitars, I'll do it all, the keyboards, the piano, whatever is necessary. I bring it in, and largely it's just bare bones. And I'll go, okay, Tooch, I want you to do your thing. Zach, I want you to do your thing, but I want it to kind of blend like this. This is the vibe that I'm looking for. And it's not necessarily a part, it's a vibes. And we have such great musical language together that they get what I'm saying, and we can kind of vibe off of it. And 9 times out of 10, everything that they come up with stays because it's fucking rad. It's only very rarely that I go, you know what, that's a cool idea, but it's rubbing here. Let's adjust it. So from soup to nuts, it will start with me really kind of fucking hyper focusing on the song itself until I kind of wrap my head around it. And then I kind of pull back and then strictly obsess on what I'm going to do. And then I leave the music to them and allow them to really be themselves, you know? And that's, I think that's one of the reasons why it's so different from other solo groups, because to me it's a group effort, you know what I mean? And that allows them not only to put a little more creativity into it, but to put a little more heart into it, you know, because we know we're doing it together, and it just feels special. So then once we get into the studio, we've worked things out, and it's, you know, the intricacies kind of fit like Legos, you know, they stack together and then they stick together. And then and then when we go in and we record it live in the room, then it's just a matter of just capture the vibe, capture the emotion, capture the moment, because we know that we can work on that like that, you know.
It's interesting, you know, I think like the title itself, CMF2, and then obviously CMF2 before, but also the artwork you've got going on this one, you know, it's different eras, it's different versions of yourself. And it just kind of got me thinking, like, again, with the writing, when you're going into different genres like this, does it feel like playing a character to you? Does it feel like taking on almost a different persona in that way? Obviously, we're used to masks from yourself, but
Right.
does it help in that way when it actually gets into the headspace of the writing in this way?
That's a good question, man. You know, the funny thing is that whenever I'm singing a song by a different person, I invariably try to mimic their voice. So like if I'm singing a Bowie song, I immediately start to, you know, it's a brand new dance, but I, you know, and you almost go into that Bowie's vibe, you know. So I don't know if I necessarily slip into a different character in the music, but there's definitely a different timbre to my voice. You know what I mean? Like it's definitely something that changes. Like if you listen to the song Midnight and listen to the kind of the solemnness that I'm trying to convey, especially in the first part of that song, and then kind of A B it, you know, with the joy that I feel on Someday I'll Change Your Mind. There's a natural, there's almost a lightness that kind of comes from that, you know, that song. And then the very next song is All I Want Is Hate. It's just such a different, you know, kind of screamer. I don't know, man. I don't know if it's a different character, but it's just, I think it's just different sides of my personality. You know, it's definitely wearing my influences on my sleeve. It's definitely sharing the emotions that we all feel. I feel like this album's kind of a throwback album anyway. So it's really kind of like, this is what people used to do. You know, it didn't have to be a fucking straight line of music. It didn't have to be, you know, okay, I have to play the same person over and over and over and over and over and over. It's just like you went in and whatever that song needed, you lent that emotion to that song, you know? So for me, that's what that's about. It's about not just showing different characters, but it's just about showing different sides of the same person, because none of us are the same person all the fucking time.
I'm going to jump slightly all over the place, but so next year, not only is it Rock Sound's 25th anniversary next year, which we're excited about, but also 25 years, of course, since the Slipknot debut. Something I always like to ask artists when we reach an anniversary like that is not so much what's changed, because that's apparent. We can see how much Slipknot has grown and changed over the years, right? What stayed the same for you? Anything you learnt making that first record that still sticks with you when it comes time to get in the studio again?
I think the one thing that I learned from working with Ross is that when you go for it, you have to go for it with everything. You know what I mean? So if I'm going to lean into something heavy, I do it with my whole body. You know what I mean? Like, and there, I mean, there's, you can see it when I'm tracking stuff, you know, like the behind the scenes stuff, man. I give my whole body, my whole soul to a take, and I don't hold anything back. I make sure that if I need it to feel unhinged, I keep doing it until it has that vibe. You know what I mean? Um, and then when it comes to like the singing part, I do it until I know it's perfect. You know what I mean? Like I don't like to. I never leave anything half-assed. I never allow anybody to tune my vocals. I make sure my shit is fucking on 100% of the time. I just make sure that you can feel the passion in it. You know, like that's the difference between me and a lot of different singers. A lot of different singers is like, is it in key? Okay, then it doesn't matter. Or they just kind of go through the motions when it comes to the growl or the heavy shit. You know, for me, it's about the passion behind it. It's like it's one thing to think that something's heavy just because it's being screamed, but if you can't feel it, is it really heavy? You know what I mean? Like, and that's why I think that sometimes the softer passages can be the heavier songs on the album because of the weight of the emotion. So that's definitely the thing that I learned from Ross, and I've kept it with me for years. You know, it's just like make sure that you're fucking ripping your chest open and just fucking giving it as much as you can, because anything less is cheating the audience.